Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, Ghana, Amazon Music, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. We're getting ready to celebrate the great holiday of Diwali with our guest, Ajanta Chakraborty. Before we invite Anjanta in, we want to invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. That's where you can find our brand new newsletter. We publish it every 2 weeks, and it's jam-packed with lots of great information. You will find out what's coming in the future. On the Reading with Your Kids podcast, you'll see some of the highlights, some things that you may have missed on the podcast. We'll also be celebrating our recent certified great reads and also share with you a great do-it-together activity. It might be a recipe. It might be a game that you and your family can play. It might be a fantastic STEM activity. You never know what's going to be there unless you visit the website, readingwithyourkids.com. Joining us right now from the mighty city of Chicago in the state of Illinois. She's coming back to the show to celebrate the holiday of Diwali. Please welcome back the driving force behind Culture Groove, Anjanta Chakraborty. Anjanta, welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back again.
Thank you so much for being here. I've heard... my producer is in Mumbai, so I've heard of this wonderful holiday of Diwali. But other than just hearing that it's a lot of fun and that there's a lot to do with lights, that's about all I know about. So I'm really excited that you're here to let us know about this holiday.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is like the Christmas of India. It is our biggest festival. People celebrated, the preparations start at least a month before. And you're right, it is the Festival of Lights. And it has a very nice, like, mythological story behind it, which is more about, the victory of good over evil. But of course, on the day, it's just celebrated with lots and lots of lights. Used to be a lot of fireworks as well. That's reduced a little bit over the years, in India. But still, yeah, it is basically the Festival of Lights. It is the day where the whole country lights up and looks beautiful. And we celebrate it like it is the biggest festival for us.
Now, we are publishing this on Diwali is in multi-day celebration. Am I right about that?
That is correct. It's actually a 5-day celebration with the main day of Diwali being right in the middle. It's the third day. That is the main day of Diwali, but it is celebrated for 5 days. And there is something unique that happens on each one of those 5 days.
Ooh, wow. Let's get it. So we are publishing this interview on the first day of Diwali. So what happens on day one?
Absolutely. So day one has a tricky name. It's called Dhanteras. And dhan actually means wealth. And what we end up doing on Dhanteras is you have to go shopping. And when you go shopping, you have to either buy a pot or a pan, so something in the kitchen utensil area, or you buy jewelry. So a lot of people in India, they will buy just loads and, like, they'll buy something even with gold or something like that. I remember in my family, my mom and I would always go and we will buy a brand new pan every single Diwali, and it used to be so much fun.
Now, are you buying that gift for yourself, or is it for someone else?
It is something new for your house. And
okay.
So a lot of the times, because Diwali is also a time to eat lots of sweets. Indian festivals are all about food and music and dances. So yes, there's lots of food involved, and the pan provides the perfect excuse to cook something really delicious for the festival. So in my book, the Let's Celebrate 5 Days of Diwali, we talk specifically about laddus because kids absolutely love those. And yes, there is laddus, there is barfi. So the difference, how do you know, right, which one is what? Laddus are round and they can be made out of chickpea flour sometimes. There can be honey-soaked ones. They're all different kinds that you can make, and they're all equally delicious. You know, barfi, when it's rectangular or diamond-shaped, gulab jamun are actually like, they're more liquidy. So there's a liquid, base to it. But yes, it's just one after another, all kinds of sweets, and we just get a whole bunch of them for Diwali.
Wow. Talk about, people talking about putting on their pandemic pounds. I think I'd be walking around with lots of Diwali, and it's just day one. Okay, so day one, we go and we buy something for the house.
Yes.
What happens on day two?
Day two is when we actually make all the sweets and we eat them. So the perfect thing for, by the way, I just want to mention this because it's so fun. For one of the things that we have really found to be engaging for kids is we celebrate each day with them. So day one, we will typically do like a fun craft with them, like some kind of a jewelry making thing. And we put all of this on our website as well if parents want ideas. But it's like taking them through each day is just so much fun. So day one, have your child, make some jewelry related craft. It could be anything, out of like, I don't know, macaroni, or it could be just out of, paper rolls. There's so many ideas out there. But that's a good way to kind of celebrate with your child. And then day two, there is a really easy way to make coconut barfi. It is absolutely delicious. Also the video, we have it on our site. That is something you can actually do with your child. You can actually make this sweet. It literally takes like less than 30 minutes, and you can have it for quite some time. It's absolutely delicious. But that's day two. And the other thing that happens on day two is you've got to make this drawing that's made with colored powder. And you usually draw it right near the entrance of your house. So right near the front door. It's called rangoli. And it's meant to basically welcome people. So it's sort of supposed to be this beautiful thing that you put right at the entrance of your house. And as people are coming in, they can admire it. They can feel really welcomed. Also a really fun activity to do with your kids. We have some cool ideas around this. You can actually make it with Play-Doh. Colored powder can get a little messy. But we have some ideas on how you can do this with Play-Doh, and then you put candles around it, and it's absolutely beautiful.
This is so nice. I love that. And you're not able to see this. Anjanta there is so much energy. She is so excited about this, not only about the holiday, but so excited about sharing with how families can celebrate this together. And that's really, really wonderful. And I love that idea of, we all, not everybody, but lots of folks have welcome mats. But what a great way to kind of get the kids involved with, instead of going to the Bed Bath and Beyond to buy something that's mass produced. Have you and your kids create a beautiful piece of art that is unique to your family, that welcomes guests into your home.
That is right. That's exactly the concept of Rangoli. And so day two, a lot of people will do that so that their house is now Diwali ready. Usually it begins with cleaning the house, like, way before Diwali. But this is the day where you're like, now you're decorated. You might put flowers around your house, whatever decoration you want to do. By day two, which is called Choti Diwali. Choti means little. And so Choti it's like the Christmas Eve. It's the day before Diwali. This is the day you decorate and you make your sweets and you start eating them.
Awesome. So, and you were saying, so the third day of Diwali is the biggie.
Yes. Exactly. This is the main day. Kids wake up excited. I mean, first thing in the morning, they're like ready to celebrate. And the way you do it is, of course, when we were little, there was a lot more of the fireworks as well. And so we would get all these different kind of fireworks, from the ones that like go up like a fountain to the ones that are like rockets that shoot up in the sky. There are ones that go spiral on the floor. Oh my gosh, there are all these different kinds. And fireworks were the things we used to be most excited about. In more recent times, India is going a little more green on this because it does create a lot of smoke and sound. And so now more and more people are doing a little bit of a quieter ones. But in terms of the quiet one is where you use these clay lamps. They're called diyas. And they look absolutely beautiful. These are terracotta, so they're like burnt clay, right? So they're hard, they're not soft, they're brittle. And then they come in beautiful colors and patterns. And the thing I always tell people when they're asking for ideas, paint some diyas with your kids. It is so fun. So you can find these that have no color on them. They just look like clay ones. And you can literally just paint them and they look so beautiful. And then what do you do at the end? You pour some oil in it and then you put a little bit of cotton on one side and then you light it up. So it's like a clay lamp. And then you put these clay lamps everywhere in the house. And the goal is no part of your house should be in the dark on the day of Diwali. Because, so some people believe, so now in our books we treat religious aspects very carefully. We always mention it as some people in India believe this, but you can take it as a story if you want. And so what happens in that is that the story is that a lot of people pray to Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth and prosperity. And so the idea is that you dress up your whole house in these lights and all the decorations you've done, and then Lakshmi will visit your house, and then you will also be touched by all the wealth and prosperity that's to come. So that's the basic idea, which is why you light up the whole house with diyas, and so no part of the house should be dark, and that's why day 3 is like such a big deal.
I love this idea. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is, I think there are a lot of people of faith, and they value their faith. It's important to them, and my faith is really important to me.
Right.
But learning about somebody else's faith does nothing to hurt my faith. It doesn't diminish my faith in any way for me to learn, to read a Hindu book, or to learn a Hindu story, or to read the Quran, or it doesn't. In fact, I think it strengthens my faith, especially when I find similarities. You know, there are so many similarities between the great, the major religions in the world have. I mean, the basic, when you get down to the core belief that we are all loved and we are all beautiful and that we were created intentionally and that God loves us and God asks us to love others. I mean, that's basic. That's what all religions are built on. And so how can that be hurt by finding out that people who worship a little bit differently have that same core belief?
Right, absolutely. I mean, my goodness, we need more people like you in this world, Jed, right? This is precisely why we even started writing. Because our thing was, don't even talk about religion if you don't want to. Let's talk about the cultural aspects, right? And the reason so many of our books, again, focus on festivals is because kids love celebrating. What gets them more excited? I mean, think about it. A child will talk about their birthday for at least 2 months because that's how excited they are. And so this is why festivals are such a perfect looking glass into another culture, into experiencing it. And no, you don't even have to if it interrupts with your faith. I mean, your way of looking is beautiful. But if you can't do that, where you're like, I don't want to learn about, the other religions, just learn about the culture. You know what? Don't even worry about anything else. Just learn about how do we celebrate? What does it stand for? So the mythological story behind Diwali, which is very different, right? So the mythological story behind Diwali is that there used to be a king, okay? And I'm going to tell you the story very, very quickly. There used to be a good king named Ram, and his queen was Sita. They had to live in a forest for 14 years. 14 years is a long time. We're not talking weekend camping. This is like actual living there in the forest. And there's a whole story behind why it happened. And then this evil king, Ravan, he wanted to make Sita his queen. And so he puts on a disguise of an old beggar. He shows up at the forest, and Sita was the only one home. And he begs for food. She, of course, she's such a nice person. She's like, of course I will help you. The moment she steps out, he takes her away. Right? So it's essentially like, she didn't want to go and it was forcefully done. And he takes her away to his own palace. And then Ram says, we're not going to let this happen. He was a brave king. And so he shows up at Ravan's house. And then there is a fight. And then at the end of it, Ravan is defeated. Ram wins. They all come back to house. And this is precisely why it's essentially, this is why it's a story of good winning over evil, just because of this. And so that's what we think of. More than anything, it's the one day that reminds us that believe in good, that is the way to go. And so if you think about it, there's always an essence behind these celebrations. And we can literally just think about that. And it makes it so much easier to consume and celebrate.
Yeah. So we've made it through day 3. And we have 2 more days to. I don't know if I would have the energy to do any more celebrating. But what goes on day 4?
So day 4 is actually, there are many traditions in India, and each subculture has almost its own. The one that we highlight in our book is called Saal Mubarak. A lot of people in India, they celebrate day 4 as their new year. This is the day that when their new year starts. And one of the ways, which is again fun for kids, is that they get gifts. So they get New Year gifts on this day. And so that's what we usually talk about, which is why kids love it. But that's essentially it. So you wish Happy New Year to, with each other by saying Saal Mubarak. And then you exchange gifts. Awesome. That's day 4.
Awesome. Saal Mubarak. That's wonderful. And I'm really happy that you pointed out, a lot of people, they hear India and they just, whatever stereotype comes into their mind. But India isn't this monolithic place. It is a very, very diverse country. And it's huge. And I always get this wrong. I think I was told there are 28 official languages and then maybe 2,800 other languages.
That is absolutely correct. Yes, we have a crazy number of official languages and thousands of dialects. So it really is a little continent by itself. India is really not just one little country. You cannot impose any observation that you come up with. There will be 50 contradictions to it right away. And so it is absolutely impossible to describe it in just one way. You're 100% right about that, which is why writing the books, that's why it becomes quite challenging, because I have to pick and choose just the right one so that it represents enough of the people. But there are so many more stories. This is why I've actually started doing these free storytime sessions where I just bring kids in and I just tell them different stories of India, because I'm like, there is so much more to learn about these. But yeah, that is the idea.
And I think it's important for us to understand that, as we're understanding that, there's so much going on and it's so different and wonderful and beautiful, and we have one more day left. One more day to celebrate.
Yes, absolutely. I forgot to mention. So, you know how you talked about similarities? That is one of the things that we love to highlight. And it's amazing when you do that. The moment the child connects the dots between what's in their life and what's common with what they are learning, it builds empathy. It builds kindness. It makes the world a friendlier place. And so we are always looking for these, similarities as well. So we created a song called 5 Days of Diwali. Okay. It's available on YouTube. And it's exactly to the tune of 12 Days of Christmas. So again, it's bringing that relatability in there. We're saying, yes, look, now I realize it. And it's hilarious. I have to tell you this, a few years ago, we had just released the song, and this kid would basically only now sing 5 Days of Diwali. And when she would listen to 12 Days of Christmas, she's like, no, I know the other song. It was amazing. So again, we're always looking for these patterns, because that's what connects the dot for a child. I love doing it. All right, back to what your question was, day 5. Day 5 is the day that we celebrate. It's called Bhai Dooj. And what happens on that day is we celebrate the sibling bond. And the way that happens is usually the sister, she'll have a little plate, and on the plate will be a red paste. And this red paste is called kumkum. And she would take this red paste and then she would put it right on the brother's forehead. And it's essentially a little ritual where the brother and sister are essentially promising to take care of each other. So it's just a nice way to kind of celebrate the sibling bond. As in the modern times, we have expanded the scope, and it's so wonderful to see it, to include, let's say, 2 brothers, or let's say 2 sisters, or cousins, maybe friends. It doesn't matter. Now we basically talk about, let's make it a day where we celebrate love, right? So somebody you really care about. It's a little ritual where you take this little paste and you put a little dot on their forehead. It's called the tika. And it's essentially saying, I promise to take care of you. So it's actually a very nice way to kind of end the festival.
That's really beautiful. I mentioned the stereotype earlier. I mean, I think that's something that people will think of, that dot that a lot of us see on folks from India's head. But I never understood what a beautiful tradition that is.
Yes, absolutely. It's again, just spreads the message of love. And again, for kids who want to follow along with the celebration, it's the easiest thing to do. So when my child wants to do it, he would literally take like red face paint, right? We might not have kumkum at home. If you don't, that's it. You do. And what he did was, so he's an only child. He doesn't have any siblings. He did it with his neighbors. He took a little decorative plate. He put some red face paint on it, and he put some tika on our neighbors who are not Indian at all. And they all had a lovely, like a talk about how they care for each other. And it was the cutest moment. So that's how you can celebrate if you want to at home with your child.
One of the things that we don't have here in the States is we don't have that kind of formal day, that traditional day where we sit down and say, I love you. I appreciate you. I appreciate our friendship. Right. And one of the things I love about Thanksgiving is that it's a day when, at least theoretically, we're sitting down and we're taking a moment to say thank you. And, and hopefully then you put on your shoulder pads and your helmet to go out with the Black Friday fighting and nonsense that I don't participate in at all. I refuse. But it would be nice for us, and since we don't have our own tradition here, it'd be nice to kind of get in that tradition where we sit down with the people that are important to us and we just say, you're important to me. Thanks for being my friend. Absolutely. And hey, if you can break the cultural divide while doing that, even better, right? So include someone who doesn't look like you, who doesn't, maybe has a different set of beliefs or whatever it be. And if you can include them in that circle, now you're really making, the world a nicer place by and you're raising your child truly in that multicultural way, which is why we always say it has to be intentional. It shouldn't be a random fact that your child comes across someone of a different faith, of a different ethnicity. You have to be intentional about it. Go out there, learn about different cultures through their festivals or whatever else they do, and then incorporate that in your life. Make it part of your child's life through these little simple things here and there that have such beautiful symbolic meanings. And before you know, your world just expanded like no one's business, right? Yeah. So that's kind of what our message has always been at Bollywood Groove and Culture Groove is be intentional about it. Raise multicultural kids. It's needed. It's not that just a side effect of being in a classroom, let's say, with multiple kids of different ethnicities. You have to purposefully do it. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'd like to expand on that a little bit more. One of the things that I've heard lately, and I don't get it, is this idea of cultural appropriation. And if you are, like someone looking at me, you get blue eyes, you have blonde hair, you're an old white man, your parents came from Europe. I love the shirts, Guayavera shirts from the Caribbean. They're beautiful and they're knit. And those are the shirts I wear. And, I'm just waiting for someone to say, you can't wear that shirt. That's not from your culture. You're appropriating that. I don't get that. To me, I'm showing appreciation. Yes. You're very much aware of culture. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. That's such a great topic and very much talked about right now. If you put on a sari, an Indian sari, mm-hmm. I think it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. If you do that on Halloween as a costume, that's where it's not. Mm-hmm. So now you're treating it as a costume, and it's not a costume. Mm-hmm. It is an actual clothing or outfit. So that to me is like the best example of appropriation versus appreciation. So you want to go out there, you go to a Diwali party and you're dressed up in Indian outfit, everyone's gonna love you for that. Because now you're basically saying, I'm embracing what you're doing and I want to show appreciation by doing things that you do as well. I think that's beautiful. But when you do it as a costume, in some ways you're mocking it. And that's where I think the distinction comes in. To me, that's it though. At any other point, if you see, especially if you see people taking on Indian culture, they're almost always appreciated. We love that. But now if someone does it in a way where, they're making a music album and they're not giving credit to the culture that it's coming from, they're not assigning credit to where it's coming from. They're not including people of that culture in the music video, let's say. That's just an example. Now you're doing it in a way that's not appropriate, like give a nod to the culture where it's coming from. Give the appropriate credit. Bring in those people in the picture. And then it starts to look different. And that's where the appreciation comes from. So I think it is a subtle line, and I think it's good that we're talking about it more. We're becoming more aware of what's okay and what's not to do. So I think these conversations are great. But that's how I look at it. Is make sure you're giving credit to the place where it's coming from, giving a nod.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways that we can help our kids truly understand the difference between appropriation or mocking and appreciation is by sitting down and learning about cultures together. And it's a beautiful thing. I've said here often on the podcast, we have our Thanksgiving, and this year it's not going to happen like this, but typically we have 32 people over to our house, and there are typically 5 or 6 different languages being spoken at the table, and it is beautiful. I know some people hear that and it horrifies them. I have to tell you, it is beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
I have to say this. When I first came to Chicago, we didn't know a soul here, not one person. We had just moved from California. And I had just started Bollywood Groove, and we started doing these dance classes. And, we were like these orphans of sort, like we had no family here, we had nothing here. And my very first beautiful experience was actually a dear friend of mine, Lizzie, who invited me over for a Thanksgiving meal. And that's what she does. So every year she looks for people who have, no one, and she basically invites them over. And my first beautiful Chicago experience was actually a Thanksgiving meal. And I was just sitting there thinking, this is so beautiful. I got to be a part of her family for that one day. This whole thing about including people, being that inclusion is so, so, so important. And that creates a real impact. Like, I think I'm going to remember that Thanksgiving meal for the rest of my life. And I think that inclusivity, that having that is so, so important in life today.
Absolutely. Well, I know folks are going to want to know more about where they can go to find out more about Cultural Groove and also Bollywood Groove.
Absolutely. So yes, I have to say we're teaching twice a week, virtual classes now. Through Bollywood Groove, we are teaching these unique dances and stories classes for kids, where it's not just the dance, but we give them the cultural context on it as well. And so those classes are going really well as well. So thankful to all the community that has been supporting us. The easiest way to find that is bollygroove.com/virtual. That's where all our virtual offerings are. We do these monthly free story times as well. There's some coming up for Diwali, and we would love for people to come join them as well. And Culture Groove are our books. The best way to find them, you can just go to culturegroove.com, and it has a link to all our books. If you're looking for free resources related to Diwali, go to culturegroove.com/Diwali. That's where we have all these free resources, recipes, crafts. Everything is for free. And of course, there's also the book that we have written. And we have an activity book as well. It has 50 ideas around things that you can do for Diwali with your child. So you can go to culturegroove.com for all the books and on all these activities, all the movement and stories and all of that. Go to bollygroove.com/virtual.
We've had a great time getting ready to celebrate Diwali with our friend Ajanta Chakraborty. Anjanta, thanks so much for being part of our show.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Monique Gray Smith. She'll be here to celebrate Native American Awareness Month and also International Kindness Day by talking about her book, When We Are Kind. That's the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Ajanta Chakraborty. Be sure to check out Bollywood Groove, Culture Groove, and also the 5 days of Diwali. I also want to thank my team, starting with my daughter, Alejandra Doherty. I want to thank my producer, Fatima Khan, my awesome author, Ambassador Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. But most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.